It was so hard. We were casting for 5 months before Preeti appeared.
Wow.
It's a teenage girl's sexuality. You do not want to titillate and objectify. You want to be frank because you don't want to put shame around the sexuality. Yet at the same time, you want to be extremely sensitive. Any intimate exchange is no different than a conversation.
Absolutely.
I have felt the insecurity when my boyfriend is talking to some older girl who seems cooler and more interesting than me. I really have to fight for respect. So that fight is a kind of subtle kind of racism, right? Like or when people are like, oh, why is your English so good? I'm like, sir, have you heard of colonialism?
Coming of age is one of the most overused phases to describe teenagers' film, but Shuchi Talati's Girls Will Be Girls has just changed the meaning overall. Shuchi, congratulations, so much love after the screening at MAMI. How are you feeling?
A little bit overwhelmed, very happy. Because the film premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in Jan, and so it's played in the US and France and all over. But I've been dying for it to come back home, and,
Absolutely.
And very curious about how audiences will react. And it's been so gratifying because people are like, "This is my life. Are you reading my high school diaries?" And this is what I want. Like, I made the film about us. We all know these schools and we all know teachers like this, and we all know the bullies like this. So it's really lovely.
Yeah, and of course it's entered a competition at MAMI.
Yes.
What are your expectations? The closing ceremonies today?
Honestly, no expectations. Truly, everything has been. The journey has been beyond our expectations already. When we went to Sundance, we were just like, wow, we are here. We're amongst the 10 films chosen in this section from the thousands that have been submitted. So it feels like such a win. And then to have like actual awards at the award ceremony was just like cherry on the top, So MAMI has been spectacular. So anything that comes or doesn't come is like, it's fine, it's bonus.
And tell me, Shuchi, of course, a term like boys will be boys or girls will be girls is usually used when you're describing a certain kind of behavior.
Bad behavior.
Bad behavior, yes. How did you figure out on this title when you were writing the story?
It is exactly a reference to this phrase, no? Boys will be boys, which is used to excuse bad behavior and excuse bad behavior towards girls mostly. That girls, you change your behavior because boys will be boys, So your skirt lengths should be proper. Or you take care not to talk to them because they will to talk to you. So it is a cheeky reference to that. That's how it started. But then over time has come to mean a couple of additional things to me. One is that in the film, it's a mother-daughter story and the mother is sort of a girl. She hasn't had a chance to grow up and have the freedoms that her daughter has. So in that sense, girls will be girls. And the third sense is Meera in the film becomes the head prefect.
Yeah.
She's anointed in this position seemingly of power. But through the film, we see how fragile this power is, how easily it crumbles. You can make one misstep and everyone will turn against you.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, also girls will be girls and they're not given the same freedoms or the same power or the same sense of agency as boys.
How were you when you were growing up?
I was a very good student on my way to becoming a doctor. I studied for PMT and then at one point was like, what do I really like? I've never thought about it. I thought I'm a good student. I've become a doctor and engineer like a little robot. And then I thought the thing that I know and that I love is stories.
Yeah.
I never was anywhere without a book. Always had a book at the dining table, under the table. So I went to study English literature and then found my way to filmmaking.
Amazing. Tell me, how did you pen this story? What was the crux of it? How did it all happen?
I feel like it happened in 2 stages. First, the very first seed was, I would say, a feeling of anger and rebellion. This feeling angry at what we were put through as girls. As soon as you become a teenager, this constant policing and surveillance.
Absolutely.
What is your uniform length? Pull up your socks. Why are you talking to this boy? Who's calling? This constant, right?
Absolutely.
And so then we have so much shame around our bodies, around our sexuality. When I had my first boyfriend, of course, I hid it from my parents and teachers, but I also hid it from my best friend.
Oh.
Why? Because I thought she would judge me.
Right.
Because we were judged for this.
Absolutely.
So I really wanted to tell the story of this young girl's first romance, discovering desire, discovering pleasure, with treating it as its normal, mundane, fun part of growing up. You know, she has fun. So not have that shaming in the storytelling. So that was the first crux. The second was when the mother character appeared in the film. She wasn't in the first draft of the script, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a triangle between actually the girl, the boy, and a teacher.
Okay,
So that Miss Bansi
Yes.
is a vestige of that character.
Wow.
Yeah. And at some point, it turned into the mother. And as I was writing it, you know, I'm closer in age to the mother. And I'm feeling like she's a young woman. She's in her late 30s. Like, why shouldn't she have desire? Why shouldn't she have fun?
Yeah.
Why should she be in the supporting role only? You know? Like, I can totally understand why she enjoys this boy's attention, because he treats her as a person. He's curious about her past. So that once I developed that empathy towards the character, I understood that this film was about both generations of women, both in a very similar way, trying to break out of the box that society puts them in.
Yeah. And how was things at your school? Has there been an inspiration from that also?
I mean, I feel like it's inspiration from every school. I don't know. Do you not recognize this school?
I recognize because I was a head girl and I used to do the same thing, check hemlines at assembly. So I could just totally relate to that.
I feel like every school was this school. And anyone who watches it, who's like grown up in India, whether they went to a convent, whether they went to a boarding school, whether they went to a day school, jo bhi hai, they're kind of like, oh, this is my school. You know? So I think we all know this environment so well. I didn't go to a boarding school, but it was not hard to imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And tell me about the casting, because I think such fabulous actors, just amazed by their performance, and especially it's Preeti's debut.
Yeah.
Tell me, how difficult was it to find these characters, find these actors?
It was so hard. You know, we were casting for 5 months before Preeti appeared.
Wow.
And we were working with this amazing casting director. His name is Dilip Shankar, very senior. He cast Monsoon Wedding, has worked with Meera Nair since. And he was doing a two-pronged approach. One is auditioning actors who have credits, because there are so many talented young actors, you know, in India who've done work. And the second was open casting call. So 5 months in, we hadn't found our Meera, and Preeti came through an open casting call.
Wow.
And such an immediate standout.
Amazing.
One is, you know, she has this unself-consciousness. Which I associate with the 90s, because we didn't have selfies and we were not always looking at ourselves.
Right.
So we were not conscious of how we were looking, you know, hum kuch bhi pehen lete the.
True.
So that quality she has. But the second, maybe more important quality is this kind of strength. Her audition scene was this astronomy club where she meets and flirts with this boy, love interest, for the first time, right? And a lot of the actresses tended to play it very coy, batting the eyelids, a little bit shy. Why? Because this is how we see women falling in love on screen. This is for performing for the male gaze. And I would always say to them, but you are the head prefect. And Preeti, who, by the way, was also a head prefect in her school, didn't need to be told that. Like, she played it with such dignity and strength that she liked this boy, but she will not bat her eyelids. She's not debasing herself. You know? So that strength, to me, is so central to Meera, and told me that she had access to this character's psychology in this very special way.
Yeah. And tell me, how did Richa and Ali came on board to produce the film?
So Richa and I are college friends.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were at this program at Sophia's called SEM. And she and I co-directed a documentary together.
Amazing.
Yeah. So this is like a collaboration goes way back. Then I wanted to apply to film school in the US. And Richa was like acting. I think she hadn't even done Oi Lucky at that point. and I asked her to act in my submission short film. So she acted in a 5-minute short film where she plays a struggling actor.
Oh, wow.
That is based on all the stories that she used to tell me about casting.
Amazing.
So this is our first two collaborations. Then for many years, her star continued to rise.
Right.
She did Gangs and then so much other work. I became a director, and every time I would come to Bombay, I would stay at her place. Then I wrote this script and I was applying to NFDC Film Bazaar, a co-production market. And I had to put in a producer. And I said, Richa, I don't know anyone in the industry. I'm putting your name.
Okay.
She said, put it. And then I had to put in a production company, and they didn't have Pushing Button Studios at that time. I put Kamli Productions.
Okay.
Which Kamli was Richa's cat.
Cat, yeah.
So I applied and I said, I have applied. We probably won't get in. Then we got in. So I said, okay, we got in, but you still don't have to come. I can go and pitch and say my producer couldn't make it. She said, Shuchi, at least let me read the script. She read it. She loved it.
Wow.
She said, I've been wanting to produce, and what better film? And I'm telling you, I don't want to produce this because we are friends. I want to produce this because it's good.
Wow.
So, and then, of course, Ali had also read early drafts of the script. And then when they formed Pushing Buttons officially, he also became official part of the crew.
Amazing. This is such a success story that needs to be made into a film. Like next. Someone can actually make this as a short film for sure.
Yeah.
Also, tell me, a lot has been spoken about how Girls Will Be Girls had an all-woman crew. Like, tell me about the idea. Was that always a thought that you guys had, or it just happened while on process?
No, it was very much a part of the thought because it deals with this young girl's sexuality. So it was very important to create a safe space on set, right? She'd be surrounded by women. So whenever we shooting anything intimate, everyone would leave and there would be like 10 women on set, and which was honestly really fun.
Absolutely.
So that was one reason. And the second reason was for us as the crew, we are used to being in very male spaces on film sets. We're used to carrying a kind of armor because people will not take us seriously, or we're always trying to deflect and protect. So I thought it would be so fun for the crew to also like let go of that. We don't have to do that here. We can just do our work. So it was that too. So, and ultimately, the goal is not to have only women on set. That's not what we want. We want a set that is a feminist set of all genders. But while the world is imperfect, this is the stopgap solution.
True. But tell me also, Shuchi, how important is it to have a female gaze on stories like this? Like, of course, or a feminist gaze, like we are talking about it, because although we talk about how filmmakers have an objective gaze, but do you think it's important to have a female or a feminist gaze on stories like these?
Of course, we're talking from our experience. So there's a different way of looking. And this film, which deals with desire and romance and sexuality, often these things are done from a male gaze, in that the goal is to entertain or titillate a male viewer. That's why these things are done often, not always.
Absolutely.
But for this film, one, because it's a teenage girl's sexuality, you do not want to titillate and objectify, right?
True.
You want to be frank because you don't want to put shame around the sexuality, yet at the same time, you want to be extremely sensitive. So, having a female cinematographer was really important. And the second thing was the approach. What are we trying to photograph here? We are not trying to photograph a kiss or a touch. Actually, what we're trying to photograph is what is emotionally happening between those two people, right? Like any intimate exchange is no different than a conversation.
Absolutely.
You try to you sometimes hurt someone, you sometimes express anger, you withhold, you do all of these things. And I said that to the actors when we were casting, that what I want is to photograph that emotional exchange between you. And so to me, the most revealing moments are not a touch, but it's the moment when Meera expresses an insecurity about her body.
Yes.
Or when she feels like pain and confusion because her partner doesn't seem turned on, right? Those are the things that to me are so much more revealing. And what we tried to photograph, I don't know if that's a female gaze, but it seems to me a missing gaze.
Yeah. Amazing. But with women around, were they just giving you inputs while you were making it? Was that happening?
100%. Every time there were like scenes which like we related to, whether it was intimacy or not, like skirt lengths, which gave people PTSD, I think. True. Or like waxing, or really the intimate scenes. There is, without giving away too much, there's a special scene with a teddy bear.
Of course. One of the most important ones.
And I will say there was a lot of lived experience and tips in that room.
Amazing. And tell me, a lot has also been spoken about the technical aspect. The frame that you chose is what made you decide on that?
So the frame, it's like a 4:3, so it's almost like a more square than what we're used to these days, right? Which is very widescreen. And the cinematographer and I, we didn't initially intend that, but as we were photographing, we realized that this film had to do two things in the visually. Sometimes there's a lot of space above Mira's head. There's a lot of headroom, because we are trying to situate her in this world,
right?
And see all the forces of the world acting on her. So sometimes we needed to do that, and sometimes we needed to collapse the headroom and get so close to her that you feel that you can sense her breathe, you can hear her thoughts.
Yeah.
So the vertical frame allowed us to do that. And sometimes, like for a film that is extremely intimate, it allowed it to feel that way, intimate, close, even claustrophobic sometimes.
Yeah. And tell me, Shuchi, of course, you must have read Enid Blyton while growing up, and I'm sure that just comes in the impressions that it leaves. Do you think this can also become a series? Girls Will Be Girls can kickstart a series of female hostel stories.
Oh, what a good idea. Definitely. Enid Blyton, Mallory-Ta, St. Clair's.
Those are like, growing up, those were like the dose every week.
Yeah, I read them over and over. I would love to see Girls Will Be Girls as a series. Somebody should hire me to do this.
Yes, absolutely. Also, I was just reading the previous work that you've done, Shuchi. All have kind of just come from your personal experiences or personal stories. Do you think as a filmmaker that's important to just imbibe your personal stories, experiences in filmmaking? Or does that make things easier?
I think so. And I say that my work is extremely personal but not biographical. So what I mean by that is, I didn't go to a boarding school, right? I wasn't chased by a mob of boys. But it's deeply personal because I have felt all of these things, right? I have felt the danger when you encounter a group of men. I have felt the insecurity when my boyfriend is talking to some older girl who seems cooler and more interesting than me, that pain. Or on the other hand, I felt what the mother feels, where I feel like if I see somebody younger, or even the people now who are allowed to date, younger, people who are in 11th, 12th now, which is not allowed for me.
Right.
I feel a kind of jealousy. I'm happy for them, but I also feel envy that how come I had to do all these wandering and cut on the landline and sneak around. So to me, this film is deeply personal, more personal than if I'm telling you this is what happened, because I'm showing you this is how I felt.
Yeah.
And I think that makes work really rich. And that's how I try to work. I think about things that I've felt very deeply and are still rolling around, and then I try to find the correct plot for it.
Yeah. But do you want to continue doing that?
I think so. I mean, it seems to be working.
Also, I was reading Problem Areas. You shot an episode or a short film for that.
It was a series for HBO called Wyatt Cenac's Problem Area. So I was a story producer on it, which is sort of like a creative producer. So I had a couple of episodes that I did on that.
So the one on fighting racism was one of the subjects. Tell me, Shuchi, because you're based in the US right now, professional level, do you face that being an Indian?
For a long time, I didn't want to admit it. You don't want to feel like you experience it because it's very painful. To think that maybe I'm losing out on opportunities, or people are seeing me a certain way because I speak with an accent, because I am Indian. So you don't want to admit it, and yet it exists, I have to, in every room that I go into when I have a new job, I really have to fight for respect. I have to fight to be taken seriously, that people realize that I know what I'm doing. So that fight is a kind of subtle kind of racism, right? Or when people are like, oh, why is your English so good? I'm like, sir, have you heard of colonialism?
True that.
You know, so those things are there. Yeah, very much.
And what about gender biases? Do you think that also exists at filmmaking level at those industry? It
Of
does?
course, everywhere, you know. And whether it's India or the US, anytime I'm casting for a film and I've gone to the studio, they assume I'm either an actress or a makeup artist.
Oh my God.
And I have to say, actually, I'm the director. Or, you know, I was, for a while, I was trying to make a film with he was an older writer. Older man, and everywhere they would go, they would talk to him like he was the director, and then they would say, "And you, what do you do?" I would say, "I'm the director." You know, that that fight. It's a little irritating.
Absolutely.
But then you can also enjoy it.
Yeah.
I really did begin to enjoy watching the faces change when I said I'm the director.
But Shuchi, what made you decide to shift to US and of course you studied filmmaking there, but what made you shift there, or why aren't you just being here in Mumbai and making more films?
I shifted SA on a whim. The real truth is I needed a relationship to end and I didn't know how to end it, so I just went abroad to study. And then I thought I would come back in 2 years, you know, and I would have because I didn't really love LA.
Yeah.
But then I ended up moving to New York also on a whim. I, you know, sold all my things and just drove across the country and ended up in New York, which I love. It's like Bombay.
Right.
The trains also sound the same sometimes. And I really found my film community there. And I also met my husband there. And now I was like 10 years in New York. So at some point your life is there, you know, without ever having really planned it.
Yeah. And what's next? What are the next projects that you're working on?
What's next? I'm writing, which for me is a slow process, which I like to be patient about. You know, it takes time to write a story where you really have something to say. I'm reading scripts that come to me to direct. I want to write scripts that I don't direct. I really love writing. My first love is books.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to hire me to do an adaptation, that is truly my dream. That's what I want to do next. I shall just put it out there.
Yeah, amazing manifestation. And what about Girls Will Be Girls theatrical release in India?
Girls Will Be Girls will release hopefully sometime soon. Keep your ears open, eyes peeled sometime in early December. We wanted to really reach everyone.
And lastly, Shuchi, I wanted to ask you was how everyone is talking about how there's a lack of fund for independent filmmakers. Please take us through that and what has been the struggle for you to get the fund to make films of your choice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people think that our films are not commercially viable and this and that. They don't fit into some neat formula, right? So this film is an Indian, French, Norwegian, and American co-production.
Wow.
So that is actually tells you about the painful journey of getting it funded from all of these different places, collecting funds. Because, I mean, the European countries are lucky. They have a very different funding model. There's grants from the government that don't have to be paid back. There's not money that has to be recouped. So they can really take creative risks, right, in a way. And in India, actually, we're lucky to have the investors who really believed in the film, saw its potential, and which I think it's you know, they're being proven right. No, it screened at MAMI in a way it screened to me like a full-on masala commercial film. The way people were gasping and laughing and covering their eyes and crying, and so. I just want to say, like, our audiences are ready for nuanced cinema.
Absolutely.
They can read it. They are experts in human behavior. So these films are very accessible. So I hope that the year that Indian cinema has had with Santosh and All We Imagine and Lapata Ladies and Village Rockstars, like encourages people to take risks on these films. Because I think there's an audience.
Absolutely. I think audiences are ready. The industry. The industry isn't. True. True. But do you see yourself someday, Shuchi, making a commercial film with full Bollywood masala, the formula film?
The formula film? No. Because I think there are other ways to make commercial films. Or wo mujhe aata nahi hai. This is what I do, and I think this film is 100% commercial.
Absolutely.
And so I see myself continuing to make commercial films, but which are also my films, my voice.
Absolutely. More power to you, Shuchi. Thank you so much for this lovely conversation. I can't wait to watch it again on the big screen when it releases in India.
Thank you so much.